Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today. I'm really excited to learn about your financial journey. We've spoken a lot about other things, but your journey specifically, very curious to see how you got to where you are right now. So, the question I ask everyone when I begin is, what is your earliest memory of money?
Gosh, my earliest memory of money is probably, I would have to say, being pretty young, maybe 5 years old, and getting a birthday card. I can't remember if it was my grandmother or maybe one of my aunts and uncles, a birthday card with $5 in it, and being very excited because even at that age, I was thinking about how many candy bars can I buy with this? And it seemed like a lot. I could buy like 100 candy bars with this.
Okay, so did you put any of it away or it all went to the
No, it all got spent. It all got spent. And I think part of that was because one of the messages that I absorbed in my family growing up, um, we grew up with a lot of financial instability in my family. And there were times when, uh, my parents, my mostly my dad, would like go out and we would have like a new color television, or a new car. And then there would be other times where we were having bologna sandwiches for dinner, for days at a time, kind of thing. So because of that instability, I think one of the early messages that I absorbed, that did not serve me well as an adult, was that when you have money, you better spend it now because it's not going to be there tomorrow.
That was actually my next question. Like, did you experience or witness any financial challenges growing up? And so those things can really impact they do impact how we manage our money. And so it's very interesting to hear just spend now as opposed to maybe save so that those you can handle and weather those challenges. Maybe that was
Mhm.
a thought pattern they had. Um,
Definitely. And I think as a young adult, while I certainly had part-time jobs while I was in high school, I became emancipated from my family while I was still in high school. Um, Even though I was like working and earning my own money, I think I had um, this sense. I didn't really feel in control of my money. Money was something that just kind of happened to me. And you know how we grow up and we think that everybody does money the same way that we do, that it's the same for everybody. And of course it isn't. I thought that was just the way that money worked, that it was just something that happened to you. It really took me quite a few years as an adult to realize um, that I had some degree of control over my financial destiny, that it wasn't just luck or happenstance, but that I could make choices that would make me better off or worse off financially.
awesome. Okay, so we'll get into that, but I'm curious to know what was your first job?
My first job was working at fast food. I think I worked at a Dairy Queen
A Dairy
when I
Queen.
was 15.
Okay.
When I was in high school, so my first summer job was working at a Dairy Queen. Then I got a job working retail at a department store. And then I was really fortunate. One of my guidance counselors at school helped me get a part-time job with the post office. And I have to say, kudos to the post office. I think federal jobs, state jobs, local government jobs are great jobs, because they're very stable. It's rare that people get laid off. at the whim of some corporate titan. And the benefits are really great. I think state and local government and federal government jobs are a great way for people to have dependable income that can really help them build wealth.
And I love that you shared that because I was misinformed. In college, I was a business major and I had a professor really pushing corporate opportunities. So I live in Washington, D.C., where, federal government jobs abound. And she was like, no, go into corporate America. And for the longest, I did not want a government job because I don't know. I was like, they don't do any, excuse me for these thoughts, but they don't work as hard. They're just 9 to 5. And the older I get, I'm like, that's what I want. I don't want to be emailed at 9 p.m. and not have any work-life balance. And so that's something I do also think with the government job, you have some type of work-life balance. I have a few friends who work at the government right now, and she's like, yeah, at 4:59, we're at the elevator. No one's staying extra. No one's expecting you to stay extra. And besides all of that, it's just the stability and it's very different from corporate.
Yeah. I feel the same way about union jobs. I think unions are great, and I'm really happy to see that unions are making a comeback. Um,
I don't know much about unions, but I do see them, a lot of the Teamsters and buildings around the different unions who represent. So would those
mhm.
be mainly with trade jobs?
They're more often found with trade jobs, but teachers, firefighters, what we typically think of as kind of like middle class jobs, have benefited a lot from unions. Unions are the reason that, like my parents' generation, were able to get by on a single parent's income and still be able to afford to buy a house and, send their kids to college.
Really?
It was because of union benefits. I mean, unions are the whole reason that we have an 8-hour workday
Mm.
as the normal 40-hour work week.
As opposed to working as long as they require or request.
Right,
Okay,
right.
good information. So we
Yeah,
talked.
I mean, corporations will work you to death if they can get away with it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Anytime, any hour, you're basically working around the clock. And the older
Yeah,
I get, I'm just like, I can't do that because I need my mind free.
nobody should do that. Nobody should have to like sell your soul.
We're just trying to survive. I mean, this is the cycle of life. This like we didn't ask to be here, but when we're here, it's like life is expensive. Like we have to pay for things, but that doesn't mean I
Hmm.
want to trade in my freedom just to be able to afford life. I want to enjoy and experience life as well.
Hmm.
So you shared about your early experiences with your family. So when you were making your own money, you said you worked at Queen,
Hmm.
Dairy Queen, and the post office, a part-time job at the post office. You were still making those mistakes with money. Like, did you um, have any type of education around money management, or did that come later?
That came much, much later in life for me. And um, I would have to say, I'm trying to remember. Oh, the thing that really changed for me, I went through my 20s and 30s. I went back to college. I went to college for 1 semester out of high school, and because I was paying for it myself, I decided to drop out. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I decided to wait to go to college until I had some idea of what I wanted to study, um, which I actually think a lot of people would benefit from a gap year between high school and college, just to get a little life experience, and maybe explore some different career paths. Um, what changed for me was having a really compelling experience with body work, massage therapy. And I decided to go to school and study that. And in my late 20s, started a private practice in massage therapy, was supporting myself doing that, had a house, got married, went back to school, was still pretty clueless about money. I happened to come across a book by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez called Your Money or Your Life that was really eye-opening for me. And I realized after reading that book, one of the exercises that they have people do is to add up how much money you've made over the course of your life. And at that time, I was in my early 40s. I was kind of stunned to realize that while I had made quite a bit of money over the course of my life to that point, I also had quite a bit of debt between the mortgage on my house, student loan debt that I was carrying, plus credit card debt. Because I didn't plan ahead for big expenses. If I wanted to take a vacation, I just put it on a credit card and worried about, I'll figure out how to pay this off later. I didn't have a plan for any of that. So I probably had close to $100,000 worth of debt at that point.
Consumer debt?
Yes, consumer debt, student loan debt, mortgage debt combined,
All of it. All of it. Oh my
all of
goodness.
it.
I couldn't
Not
imagine.
counting the mortgage debt. The mortgage debt was probably another $125, $1,000 at that point
On top of that.
on
Wow.
top of that.
I know a lot of people are experiencing the same.
Hmm.
I have a different story in terms of I learned about this stuff early in life.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean I don't have my own financial challenges, um, but I knew to stay away. I knew to be careful with debt, but I know a lot of people who are struggling with debt and have a lot to really um, eliminate. So, how did
Hmm.
you stumble upon that book?
I'm trying to remember. I think my husband, I had remarried at that point, and um, my husband doesn't come from a wealthy background, but his parents were both academics and had very stable academic jobs, and had a little bit of family money so that they never worried about money growing up. He grew up, you know how some people sort of grow up and you get the message that money is hard. There's never enough. Other people grow up with, there's always money. We can always find money for the things that we want. So his parents weren't terribly spendy, but they could always find money to do the things that were important to them. So very different money mindsets going into the marriage. So he had that money mindset, which was kind of very different for me to be exposed to. He also had a very cushy corporate job that he earned, really good money in, and would have end of the year bonuses sometimes that were pretty substantial. So basically, he wanted to go to an American Express financial advisor to, you know, get us like on some kind of financial plan. And when I thought about the more that I looked into it and started learning about how these things worked, I realized that the person that we would be working with was basically going to be selling us financial products and wasn't necessarily, I mean, might have been a nice person who wanted to help us, but they were being incentivized to, sell us, a particular set of financial products. And so I started learning a little bit about it. And I'd always been sort of interested but intimidated about money. And I thought I could learn how to do this. I could teach myself this. So I said, I would really like to start managing our money. And so I started teaching myself. I read every personal finance book that I could get my hands on and just started teaching myself.
I love that. So I at the beginning.
I'd gone through graduate school at that point, and one of the good things about a graduate school education is that you realize that you're really responsible kind of for teaching yourself. You're going to learn a lot, but then as part of your graduate degree, you have to make an original contribution to your field. So you learn how to learn.
That is so important because, like you said, initially you're going through your 20s and 30s, kind of allowing money to happen to you or thinking that that's how it
How
works.
it works.
And then you finally get to grad school and you realize, oh, maybe I do have some control over things. And so that led
Yes.
to you wanting to look into managing money.
And I think that's particularly important for women because women are frequently given the message that other people besides them should have agency over their life. And money is a big part of that. And I think it's particularly important for women to have agency over their life
Absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
terms of money, in terms of reproductive health and choices. I think that's key. And in fact, having choices around your reproductive health um, has tremendous financial impact for women. I mean, that's a whole other conversation we could have, and I'm just going to leave it there. But I think that that's a really important message to get out there.
And thank you for sharing that because that is off camera. We were talking about the struggles a lot of people are voicing with financial, their financial needs, and adding a baby or a child, someone else you have to care for, to all of this. It's anyways, we're not gonna get there, like you said, but I love that you brought that up because if you're yeah, yeah, a baby in the mix could really throw a wrench in your financial situation. So we got to figure out a way to advocate. I don't know. I don't know if I could be on the government board somewhere and just advising. Of course, that's not how it works. But oh my gosh, we need an overhaul. But what you started learning from self education, you stumbled upon
Mhm.
your money or your life, and you realized you had made all of this money, and could I say had nothing to show for it,
Didn't
or
have a lot to show for it. I wouldn't say I had nothing to show for it. I had a house. I had a business that I really loved that was um, paying its own way. It wasn't a hobby that was costing me. And I had my education and a house. And those were all good things, but I didn't have anything saved for retirement. My husband did. I'd never worked in jobs and being self-employed. I had never really made enough to save enough for retirement. Um, so I realized pretty quickly, at that point, I would say I was in my like early 40s. I realized that unless I did something to start building a source of recurring income, saving for retirement, that I would basically be working until I dropped dead, that I
mm,
would never be able to retire.
right? So as you were learning, do you feel like uh did you feel any sense of regret or shame over the decisions or what you didn't know in the past?
I would say I certainly felt some regret. I think it's also hard not to feel some degree of shame. I mean, we're so good at those like critical little voices in our heads. Um, it's very hard to ignore those or turn those off. Um, but I also have really come to believe that all of us are doing the best we can with the information that we have at the time, with the choices that we have available to us. And sometimes, you know, what I realize now would not be what a financial coach would necessarily recommend to somebody. Um, they were the best choices that I could make at the time. And I forgive myself for that, you know.
You always have to forgive yourself. Like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and there's
Right,
no sense in beating yourself up.
right.
I kind of
Um, Go ahead.
no, I was gonna take it back to another part, but go ahead and finish what you were gonna.
I was just going to say the one other thing that I did do, particularly when I thought that I might want to pursue teaching other people about money, because one of the things that really changed for me as I was learning about this and starting to get rid of credit card debt and starting to pay down student loans, I had lived for years with this kind of low level anxiety all the time around money. There was a part of me that was like always kind of worried, even when I was like taking a vacation and putting it on a credit card while I was like on that beach drinking a pina colada. Part of me was really anxious about it.
And that's what I was
Um, and and once I started kind of taking back the ownership, taking back agency, and making some progress, even though there were times when it was excruciatingly slow from my perspective. That low level anxiety faded away over time.
and it will.
And I started to feel much better about both my own situation and my ability to navigate it.
That is that's what we're here for, and that I think is I spent some time over the holiday just really spend like thinking about the impact I wanted to make with my work, and this is spot
Mhm,
on. I
mhm,
too felt anxiety, especially if you're someone who doesn't have a family to fall back on, and you share
mhm.
that you emancipated from your family early, like that level of stress or those thoughts, or even if they're subconscious, like that's how you navigate the world. And unless you um have some type of financial education or stability, like until that happens, like you're always going to feel that. So I was asking, you went into it, but like during those years, your 20s and 30s, without the education that you now have, you already shared you were slightly anxious, you really couldn't fully enjoy your experiences that you paid for. But can you elaborate any more on what that experience during that time looked like or felt like?
Um, I went through a divorce during that time. And that also had a big impact on my financial situation. And I think contributed to the sense of wanting to be able to earn my own money. And one of the things that appealed to me about being self-employed, um, it, as a integrative health practitioner, while when you're self-employed, and especially if you're selling a service where you're working with people one-on-one, there's always going to be ebb and flow. You know, it's always kind of like feast or famine. So that actually did help me start to think about the need to like plan ahead in terms of business cash flow. It just took me a lot longer to translate that to my personal situation, and realizing, oh, I can kind of create my own financial stability here by um, having an emergency fund, for example.
Hmm. So when you sorry, still back in your 20s. So when you graduated from high school, you said you didn't go into college right away. Did you
Mhm.
meet someone and then relinquish or let them handle everything? And which led you to realizing maybe I do, as a woman, have to have my own authority over my finances and my life. Um,
Um, I would say when my first husband and I got married, um, I would say we kind of took equal responsibility. Um, I'm sorry, I'm kind of blanking here.
okay, it's okay. So because like I mentioned how I want this to flow, but in your
Hmm.
early 20s and 30s, um, did you so you didn't go into college right away. What kind of when did you eventually get into massage therapy?
Not until my late 20s. In my early 20s, I mostly worked in restaurants, um, and worked in restaurants, very uneven cash flow again. Maybe that's one reason I have such admiration for government jobs, because it's just like so stable. And that was not my early experience at all, just the opposite. Um, yeah, I worked in a lot of dead end jobs, and it made me realize that one, I didn't want to do this forever, that this was like not a long-term career plan. I really loved massage therapy, and going back to school and doing that for 25 years was one of the best decisions I've ever made. It was really, I loved it. It was great. Couldn't be doing that at this point in my life now, but no regrets. Really loved that experience. And I really liked, um, given some of my early history and some of the things that we've talked about already, you could probably guess that control is very important to me. I have issues around control, and I like feeling in control. Um, and I would say being self-employed gave me tremendous control at that point in my life, which was something that I really benefited from.
Yeah, I love that experience for you. I think it's okay to do something else and try something else in a later part of life. Like you said, you went back to school and just are really proud of the direction life
Mhm.
took you in after all of that.
And I still tip generously.
Oh my gosh, working in restaurants was a very eye-opening experience. I only did
Along with that gap year, I think everybody should spend some time working in restaurants.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm all for that because teaches you how to act, teaches you how to tip. I mean, honestly, if you work in a really good restaurant, you could make a lot of money compared to like someone who had so, you know,
In Europe, it can be a career path, but not in America.
no, 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 no. Unless you're at like a really high-end restaurant and then you have to deal with a lot of stuff that you probably don't want to have to deal with. The thing I loved about working in restaurants was I didn't have to take the work home. Like
Hmm.
like corporate,
You
like
can,
it's done.
yeah,
It's
when
done.
your shift is done, you're out of there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, so the turning point came when you decided to manage your household's finances. Um,
Hmm.
and what were some of the changes you made when you started learning?
I opened a taxable investment account, a taxable brokerage account, and started contributing regularly. At the time that I opened the account, they basically had a incentive program to get people to open new accounts. And the deal was, it was with TD Ameritrade, and the deal was if you deposited um, $50 a month for a year, they would match that at the end of the year. So it helped me build the habit, just like you can build a habit of saving by doing that on a regular basis. Um, I started investing on a regular basis, and having that taxable brokerage account was a really great asset to build. One, we were starting to generate some dividend income, which takes a while to build up, but it's basically kind of a great, um, almost kind of emergency fund to have. It can certainly function as that. Um, it came in very handy when my husband and I have been laid off from jobs at different times. Um, that was a great alternate source of income to be able to tap into. Um, when we decided to buy a house a couple of years ago, we were able to sell some stock to be able to fund the down payment for the house. Um, we probably could have like done, just sold everything and bought the house outright, but we didn't want to do that because we know that that's going to be a source of recurring income for us in retirement. But it made sense to like do a little trimming, take a little bit of a loss for tax purposes on some stocks. And that also, I have to say, was one of the best financial decisions I've ever made, was learning how to invest.
Investing is key.
And I think it's not as complicated as people think. Um, I think what the main thing is to understand what your goal is for investing. Basically, do you want to have money now or do you want to have money later? And to like invest accordingly, depending on what your goal is. But it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be complicated.
Not
There
at
are a lot of people who earn a living by making it more complicated than it
exactly.
needs to be.
Exactly. That American Express
Uh-huh.
representative. And I'm not knocking him because that was really my first job out of college. I worked for a broker-dealer.
Hmm.
I didn't know better. But once I learned
Hmm.
and really took a look at the perspective to see prospectus, to see expense ratios and what clients were really earning, like I did not sell another mutual fund from that day because my clients were not coming out on top. And so that kind of led me into looking into other areas of finance. But I thought that was the only way you could advise people and help people with their money. And I definitely do not think that it's the right way anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
how
Yeah. The common advice about just buying a low cost index fund that tracks the stock market as a whole is good advice. If you don't do anything else, you don't enjoy doing the research or, educating yourself, that is a really simple way for most people to benefit from investing for themselves.
yeah, start as early as you can.
Hmm. Yep.
How have you grown in other areas of your life as you grew on your financial journey?
I think being able to create your own sense of financial stability, um, I think that has made so many other opportunities available to me that I was that because of that financial stability, I was in a much better position to take advantage of other opportunities that have come along for me. So, in terms of being able uh, to do interesting, fun things, to do worthwhile activities, to be in a position to be able to volunteer, to work with other organizations. Having that financial stability really made that possible for me.
And that's why it's like it's the foundation. I know
Hmm.
Maslow's and all of that. And if you're spiritual, like your root chakra, like your financial foundation is so important because it affects so much in your life. Almost everything is tied to money, any decision that you make.
And one of the things that I realized, I just, I had a lot of the like pieces. I just took me a long time to kind of put them all together. One of the things that I used to do as a massage therapist in private practice, when I looked at the price of something that I was contemplating, I looked at it in terms of how many massages will I have to do to be able to afford this? Net, like not gross, net after expenses, after taxes, after, all of the back office cost. How many hours of work is this going to cost me?
And that's really what it is, because everything costs,
Hmm.
whether
Hmm.
it's your time or your money. So,
Hmm.
like you said,
And
you
for a lot of people, you either like have time and no money because you're not working, or you have money because you're working, but you don't have any time. And it's always a trade-off between those two things. So one of the things that I think is kind of a principle for me at this point in my life, if I can use money to buy time, that to me is a good use of money. If
Mhm.
I can buy back my time.
I agree, especially with like creating content or just business stuff. If I can outsource that,
Hmm.
it's usually worth it.
Totally. If it's something you don't like or you're not good at, or it's something that you really like struggle with, it's totally worth paying somebody else.
If you could go back and give yourself some advice about money,
Hmm.
emotion, anything like that, what would it be?
Start investing early. If I had started investing at 25 instead of like, you know, 40, 41, um, I would be in a very different situation than I am now.
Mhm.
And don't be afraid to try new things. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Um, there's a saying that good judgment comes from experience. Experience comes from bad judgment. So don't be afraid to make mistakes because that is how we learn. And most of us learn about money through trial and error. If you can work with a coach along the way, if you have the opportunity to do that and you can afford to do that, that can be a big help for people.
How would you guide someone or what would you share about someone coping with their own financial setbacks or disappointments? Like what strategy should they use?
Um, Take a deep breath. Um, gosh, I would say look for resources in your community that are either free or, income based. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. If there's anything I know, it's everything you need is available to you. It's right under your nose.
Hmm.
You just have to
Hmm.
kind of open your eyes to it. Uh,
Hmm. There is actually a great resource I would like to plug, and I wish this was a service that was more widely publicized. There is a website that you can go to called 211.org. You can type in your zip code and it will give you a list of um, basically social services that are available um, at low or no cost in your community. So things like if a local utility offers a payment program, if you're having trouble paying your utility bills because of a financial setback, companies will work with you. In fact, a lot of companies will work with you. You just have to contact them, explain your situation, and ask them what options they have available for somebody, in that situation. Um, Things like food banks. Don't be shy about utilizing food pantries and food banks in your communities. You can give back later when you're back on your feet.
Yeah. Just eliminate that shame and know
Mhm.
everyone has ups and downs. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
what are you doing now, and how can the listeners keep up with you?
I am embarking on my third act. I've kind of had um, two careers so far. Um, and I am teaching part-time at Golden Gate University in their financial planning program. I'm thrilled to say that I'm working with the fabulous Sandra Davis there, who is a coach's coach, and is the director of the financial planning program there. Um, so I'm working part-time there, and I'm starting my own private practice in financial coaching for individuals, and offering financial education for businesses as well. But I just launched a new website. You can find me at cascadiafinancialhealth.com.
I love it.
And I'm particularly interested in working with women who want to increase their financial stability and, take control of their finances. I'm also especially interested in working with people in their 40s and 50s who, like me, may not have been able to save for retirement early on, but are starting to get serious about wanting to do something to plan for their desired retirement lifestyle.
Yes.
Focusing on both how do you want, not just where's the money going to come from, but how do you want to spend your time in retirement? What is it that you want to be doing with your life? And then let's look at what do you need financially to support that and make that happen.
And this is going back to an experience we shared a few months ago. You did a presentation about retirement, and the one was the financial cost of retirement, but what are the non-financial um, aspects of retirement? So I could see you were the mastermind behind that.
That was definitely that was a little passion project on my part because I think that's important. And a lot of people do worry about the money and they think about a lot about the financial aspects of retirement. And sometimes that can be overwhelming for people. So if I can help demystify that for people, but also get them to think about how do you want to spend your time? Because the fact is we are living longer, we're healthier. People don't automatically retire, at 59 and a half or 62 or 65 anymore. And most of us, we need a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives. And a lot of that does come from work for people. So where is that source of meaning and purpose going to come from if you're not working full time for somebody else anymore? How are you going to create that for yourself? I think that's a really fun and interesting thing to help people figure out for themselves.
I think those are two great niches, things that I can certainly relate to as well. I'm nearing 40. Um,
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed listening to your story and everything that you shared. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
Just Thank you for inviting me to do this. This has truly been my pleasure.
Thank you.